Boughton Monchelsea is a village in Kent, southern England. There have been settlements here since the Iron Age. In Saxon times, it was known as Boughton, and after the Norman invasion of 1066, the village came into the possession of the Monchelsea family, whose name singled the village out from numerous other nearby settlements, also called Boughton. The area was extensively quarried for its ragstone from Roman times and well into the medieval period. The stone was used to build such august edifices as London's City Wall, Westminster Abbey, and the present-day Houses of Parliament. Once a self-contained, predominantly farming community, perhaps some of the greatest changes in the village, its life and fabric, have been since the second half of the 20th century and the first quarter of the 21st. Today, it might be classed as semi-rural. Despite this, the village, which lies between the North Downs and the Weald of Kent, still has a thriving community and a number of residents whose families have lived here for many generations, some stretching back to the 17th century and beyond. In this film, three women who were born, grew up and raised their own families in the village speak about the community they have known, the changes they have seen, and glimpse into its possible future.
I remember it as a very happy place really. Particularly, my particular situation was very family orientated. I had both my grandmothers lived in the village, aunts and uncles and cousins, and life revolved around family events and village events and very simple things really, simple pleasures.
It felt very safe. It was very friendly. There was no problem about going out to play. I think all the children knew each other because we probably all went to almost all went to the same school. And because it's smaller than it is now even, everybody played together. The big ones played with the little ones.
Oh, I suppose I'm biased really, but it was idyllic to me. We had a lovely, lovely childhood. You knew most people, lots of them were related. You had the freedom. We could wander through the woods. We didn't have to worry about who else was about. There wasn't that problem. Things were harder. There weren't the material possessions.
You know, everybody who went to the school was local, so you knew them, you knew their brothers and sisters and their mums and dads.
But definitely there was no fear of things you hear about today, abduction or too many cars, or it just didn't exist.
Not many people had a car. Most people walked, and we had a fantastic bus service, which we haven't got now.
We didn't really feel that we needed to go anywhere else. We had everything that we needed.
Well, as my sister once said, at the school you was almost like a big family because you knew everybody and people looked out for each other. I think some of the innocence has gone.
There were quite a few shops.
The village, we felt, was very self-sufficient then.
But as with everywhere, it's change. And a lot of it's for the good, especially for the school. We retain the school and the shop, the post office, so that's really, really good.
Grocers' shops, one of which delivered. My mum would put a order book in once a week and it would come in a cardboard box, be delivered.
You didn't really need to go out. I mean, people did, obviously, but there was a doctor's. There were 3 shops in Church Street, 2 butchers, police station, hairdressers, the baker delivered. Yes, you went to Maidstone, and Maidstone doesn't bear any resemblance, I don't think, anymore to what it was then.
Yeah, so it was just a very happy time, really. Looking back at photos, that my mum was quite good at taking photos of just ordinary things, you know, being in the garden. biking. We used to bike everywhere or walk everywhere because there wasn't much traffic, so it was safe. And
in a nutshell, I would say it was very safe, very friendly, and self-sufficient.
And we were out. We had the freedom. We had lovely times in the barn when we were children, in the straw and the hay, and you could just wander off. It was, to me, idyllic. But then, I think it's probably what the children need now. They need that freedom. They need to get out, to use their imaginations. So yeah, growing up on the farm, it was hard. It was quite dirty at times, but who cares? It was a lot less taxing on the brain, I think.
everything was routine. I feel it was all sort of a rhythm, so you knew where you were, what you were doing. So anything different that happened in the village was really exciting.
People worked on the land, mothers worked on the land, mothers took their children. I didn't hear of any accidents. I grew up on the farm just here, Beresfords. It was hard physical work, long days. I remember Dad, we would be up on the farm before 7, come home for breakfast, back again, and then after all the fruit picking was done, up off to London, up to the London markets, back by 4 o'clock in the morning, back on the farm at 7.
My dad was a great gardener, and used to grow lots of fruit and vegetables, and my mum was a great preserver of fruit. I'm carrying on the tradition now, but we would grow all our own vegetables, and then she would not freeze them then, it was bottling.
Hop picking was a big thing, and of course that's gone now. I don't think there is a hop garden here anymore.
From about the age of 11, I used to go fruit picking just off the green. Derek Frankland used to grow strawberries, raspberries, blackcurrants, and also he had a patch at the allotments.
Fruit picking, but I can't say we were ever really involved in it because my dad grew everything.
Earning a little bit of money when you're 11, it was really good. And that was a biking thing as well, a bike along, bike home for lunch, bike back in the afternoon. Because the roads were so safe then, and you didn't feel any problem with it at all. No helmets or...
Everybody grew something. There was a gardeners' society, I know when I was little.
The first match of the season was always really exciting. Oh, cricket started again, we'll see all the people that we know. And the last match was always a bit sad, but a nice occasion.
There were a lot of community organisations. I know when my grandparents' generation were young, there was an operatic society. We've got wonderful photos of them all sort of sitting like this. But, there was a lot going on because I suppose, people made their own amusement, didn't they?
Didn't go away on holiday. Well, we did a couple of times. Once to Scotland in a lorry and once to Wales in a van. We had a lovely time, a lovely, lovely time.
We only ever went on holiday for 1 week in the summer holidays to somewhere in Britain. We got as far as Yorkshire and Cornwall and Wales, but that was the summer holiday, was 1 week at the seaside. Then the winter, once the cricket season had finished, we looked forward to bonfire night. My gran, because they had the farm, they had plenty of space to build a big bonfire, and Gran loved bonfire night, so all the family, which was her 3 daughters and their husbands and 9 grandchildren, would all get together for bonfire night.
Well, before the advent of television, I think that's it. There was a lot more community activity.
Had a big bonfire and a few fireworks, which were probably more dangerous than they should have been, but there we go. Nobody came to any harm.
There were lots of things going on, lots of little groups and societies.
Christmas was a big thing. We had, my mum and both her sisters had a family party, one before Christmas and two after Christmas. And then we always went to my maternal grandmother's for Christmas Day and my paternal grandmother's for Boxing Day. Spring comes round very quickly. Once Christmas is gone, you think, oh, it won't be long before it's Easter.
My daughter worked in the archives in Maidstone, and in her lunch hour she traced back Dad's family to Boughton Monchelsea as far as 1649 she's got to.
We go back 5.
All in a very small area, Haste Hill really. My mum's mother lived at Heath Farm, which is sort of at the back of Haste Hill, behind Haste Hill Close that is now, but it wasn't when I was growing up.
My, whatever great that is, she came over from Ireland, but her daughter had already married my, whatever great it is, grandpa, and they moved to Boughton and he worked at the quarries.
I was born in Beresford's Lodge. Dad was born in Furtree along the quarries. My granddad grew up in Hart's House.
My grandfather was a poultry farmer, so he had the farm and the land there, but he died when I was about a year old, I think, so I never knew him. But my grandmother lived there for another 20 years, probably.
The fact that I had my grandparents, 2 aunts and my cousins, and their cousins, we were all considered cousins, even though we probably weren't, because their my aunt and husbands, and they all grew up together with my dad. So it was a really large, extended family.
The family lived mostly, I think, in the quarries. A lot of them were quarrymen, or they worked in brickyards, generally on the land.
When I was at college and came back to college with a friend one day, and we were walking, so I was probably 19 or 20, and we walked around to the post office for something, and I was pointing out different places too, and she turned to me and she said, "Is everyone here your auntie?"
When my husband came to live here, Lucy was tracing back this. She said there was a Stroud family that lived in Hart's House in 1700 and something. I said, "No, that can't be right. That's our link."
Once every 3 weeks, when I went to school, I used to walk home at lunchtime. We didn't stay for school dinners, my family. We went home. We walked home and we walked back again at lunchtime for a proper cooked dinner rather than lunch. So once every 3 weeks, we would go to Gran's for that week because Mum was there cooking for Gran. And then my other grandmother lived at the bottom of Haste Hill in a house that she and my grandfather had built. They both worked at Boughton Place. That's where they met. He was the chauffeur. She was a housemaid, or don't know whether she got any higher than housemaid, but housekeeper, that sort of thing.
There was a lot of family connection.
My dad was born in the stables at Boughton Place, not quite like Jesus, but born in the stable anyway. And when my grandfather retired from there, he was given a nice bonus because he'd been a good, employee. And it was enough to build a pair of houses in Haste Hill. So they lived in one and rented the other one out.
His grandfather came and worked in the quarries, and then I think he was a master stonemason, something like that. And then that moved into building houses. And then my grandfather, by the time it got to my granddad, he had his own business and built various houses around the village, including ours. But my dad built their house because after the war they were able to buy the land, and because he'd grown up in the building trade, he knew what to do, and he also knew who to contact to get help where he needed it. My uncle, so my dad's sister's husband, did the same thing, and he was a carpenter, so he did all the woodwork on Dad's house, and Dad did electricals and things like that because he was an engineer. They helped each other, and in fact Uncle Peter did a lot here too. Yeah.
My granddad had 6 brothers and 4 sisters. He lost one of his sisters when she was young. He also had 4 half-sisters. Some were the same age as him and his brother, that were their cousins. Things happen like that in villages, I think.
Every week in the winter, right, not the summer so much, but because I'll come to that in a minute, but in the winter, every Sunday evening we would go to one Gran's or the other for tea. Or, you know, proper tea, high tea sort of thing, and sit and play cards, glass of sherry, well, not for the children obviously, but glass of whiskey for my dad, he liked a drop of whiskey. And back home, that was our Sunday routine.
Every year there was a big, well, it seemed to us big, fair, and a travelling fair would come, and there'd be swing boats and roundabouts and all sorts of things.
The summer fete, when the fun fair arrived.
They were here for about a week. I think they sort of came at the beginning of the week, and the fair was on the Friday and Saturday. And the children would come to school. They had, I mean, what their education was like, I dread to think.
The travelling children came to the school for that week.
But they were included in the school, that was fine.
You know, the way they lived in the caravans, that was all exciting. But it was exciting rather than a problem, you know. It was, I don't know, I can't really remember where they used to put their caravans. It was probably the other side of the school towards the church, I think, on the wide verges there. The travelling show people used to, you know, hitch up their wagons on the side of the road and take the week to set up the fun fair in the wreck. We still call it the wreck, but lots of people call it the park now, and I don't really like that, it's the wreck.
And we used to be given a little card because there were other stalls as well. You know, there'd be a gardener's stall or whatever, village organisations. But the children would be given a tea. So you had a card and you kept the top part for when you went for tea, and then you had free rides and a free ice cream. It was lovely.
Yeah, so they set up everything, you know, all the sideshows and things, and then there were races and, you know, stalls and things like that. And it was really exciting. The British Legion would provide tea for all the village children in, it was a village hall, but it was called the Institute. I think it had been set up after the First World War. And it was a bit ramshackle, but that's where things took place, you know. Had a little book of tickets, and you had to give 1 ticket for your tea, and then you got some free rides as well on the fun fair. You know, all the village children from, I don't know what age, probably started at 4 or 5 up to teenage, got a free tea, fun fight, and some free rides. So that was a Saturday once a year, but you could go to the fun fair during the evenings beforehand as well, or go and watch. We used to go and just watch and see what they were doing, you know. I really think that was the big village event of the year for adults and children. My mum and dad, I think my dad said that he asked my mum to go on the swing boats, you know. At the fair there were swing boats, and when they were first courting, they went to the fair and he said, "Oh, do you want to go on the swing boats?" And she said yes, but she hated swing boats actually. But anyway, they had their first date on the swing boats, I think.
Church has been a big part of my life and my family's life. Not just through faith, but I would say also socially.
It was a big focal point, you know, all the different rhythm of the year again, Easter and harvest.
It is the most beautiful church. The view is superb.
The churchyard is probably my favourite place to be. Always sort of, I don't know, relax. As soon as you get on the brow of that hill and look out, you think, you know, the world's all right. So that will probably be my favourite place.
My grandfather used to say, if you've got a problem, go down there and listen to the peace.
Oh, somebody was visiting Kent and they said, "Where's your favourite place to go in Kent?" And I had a think and I thought, Boughton Churchyard. It's, you know, there's nowhere nicer really to just sit and look at the view.
And it's so true. You never go there, but there's somebody there and they're just either walking through or just having a moment. It's a very special place.
We were married in the church. The children were baptised there.
My parents, they got married in Boughton Church. Well, I suppose all my grandparents probably did as well.
And then for a little while, my sister and I helped with the Church Mouse Club. And then, of course, the children got bigger. Different sports clubs were on Sundays, and I went and supported the children.
My gran used to go. She was a church goer. She'd walk. Well, I suppose because when she was working at Boughton Place, it was just next door.
As a child, there was always Sunday school. And then, of course, I graduated into teaching Sunday school.
When we were children, we went to Sunday school there and the occasional service. There weren't very many people there. Mr. Bowles used to play the organ, which was a tiny little thing. And the Miss Weavers were always there. Mummy was a Sunday school teacher there.
I wasn't much of a churchgoer when I was young, but I liked singing, and my gran suggested I join the church choir. So from sort of 10 to 16, I was in the church choir and went to services every week, weddings, that was all it. And the weddings, you probably know who was getting married, and it was like being invited to the wedding if you were in the choir. Choir outings we went on sometimes to sing somewhere else. So that was fun.
How old was I? About 13, 14. I sang in the choir and was cross-bearer.
I mean, my grandfather and my father were both in the choir before us, and so that's always been part. And they were bell ringers. I mean, I wasn't a bell ringer, but they were. And my uncles were. Yeah, it's been a big part of our lives. It still is. Yeah, yeah. So I hope we get a new vicar soon.
My faith has never wavered. I don't go to church now. I do occasionally, but not very often, and we haven't got a permanent vicar now.
Yeah, we get visiting priests that come, and it's great. It's good to have a bit of a change, you know, see a new perspective.
But as my grandmother said, and I think I said, she had a Bible, oh no, I've got her Bible, and she put her special things in it. Her church was where she lived. She was nearly blind, she couldn't read and write very well. It's how you live your life that counts. I think you just look about you, look outside, walk along that ridge. We are so fortunate, so blessed. Yeah.
I don't often go to church, I must admit, but I don't think it's not. I think it used to be more of a social, cultural, you know, it's where people met, and again, it was a rhythm. Sundays you went to church, and but now, I mean, the church is still going, obviously, but I think a lot of the people there maybe come from outside the village. I mean, it's still a lovely church, a lovely place to be, and the churchyard is wonderful.
Oh, yes. Carol singing. So we had a very big choir at one time. I'm just trying to think, it was probably when I was between the ages of 7 and early teens, I can't remember. When I say big, it filled the choir stalls plus. And there was a big children's choir. I don't think you can bring it in from outside. I think it's got to come from within. And as I say, I think that's got to be probably the school, possibly the church if we get the right person. I mean, we've had various stages, I would say, in my life when we've had vicars that have been instrumental in, they would perhaps call it stirring up, but certainly not making it a social thing as well as a faith thing. And that's very important, because that's how you get to know people and you get alongside them.
With my grandchildren, I've had a day where I've looked after them while their mums go to work. Yeah, I've been very involved with their upbringing. We worked out that they are the 5th generation at Boughton School.
A part-time position came up at Boughton, and I had already been doing supply in there. So I went for that, and that's how I ended up there.
Then I've heard that there's quite a few others, like Rosemary, the Davis family, and another branch of the Davis family. You know, they can go back that many generations as well at Boughton School. Probably my grandmothers would have been at school in the 1890s, I think. So maybe their parents were there as well, I'm not sure.
When I went back and it was so brilliant. I absolutely loved it. And it was a fabulous way to finish my career, if you like. I haven't been there for 10 years, so I don't know. But it was a really lovely, family-orientated school.
I wouldn't say it wasn't a nice building, but it was quite old-fashioned when I started there. The toilets were in the playground and they were just wooden seats over a hole. So, you know, that wasn't ideal.
The children, there were one or two that, as I was getting near the end, because it was a successful school, people from outside were very pushy about getting their children in there. And it had wonderful facilities.
They've obviously modernised it now. They've got a nice new hall, but our hall was the main room at the front of the school. Headmaster used to live on site, on the premises.
Not many primary schools have an indoor heated swimming pool. They've got a adventure playground area, which was the woods when we were little. There's an amphitheatre. Well, apart from having the field.
I think size of a school has a lot to do with it. Some of the other primary schools are 2-form entry, 3-form entry. You can't possibly know everybody, whereas at Boughton School, you did know everybody. You knew everybody. You can keep 100 names and faces in your head, can't you? But not 500.
I think there is still a village heart, and I think a huge part of that is the school. Because if you've got the children, you've got the parents and you've got the grandparents, even if they don't live quite so close, you know, you've got that.
Hopefully the school will stay the same size. Somebody I was talking to said that the school wasn't big enough to have all the facilities that it needs, and it would be much better if it had doubled in size. But I think the beauty of the school is its size, and I think it's got perfectly good enough facilities, really. And they're lucky to have the rec the other side of the road for sports day and things like that.
Oh, I should think it's quite a vibrant village. There's lots going on, lots of new people, lots of cars, fewer shops, but it's still a lovely place to live.
So yeah, the housing, that's a bit of an issue. I would hate it to get overblown.
And I know there is going to be more building, but hopefully, if it's small developments, gradually, that's how things have always changed. But I think when you have huge housing estates, you just can't possibly assimilate everybody into a village. It's just not possible.
We all need somewhere to live, of course, but you expand and expand, and then a village isn't a village anymore. It's just a suburb of the town, and then that gets swallowed up, and then that gets swallowed up.
Some time ago, there was a push from Maidstone Borough Council for housing, and I went along, not just to look at that, and I said, well, what are you going to do about all these houses? Where are the children going to go to school? And he said, oh, well, they'll go over there. And I said, well, I don't think so, because we're the most oversubscribed primary school in the area. Oh, that's all right, we'll build. And I said, well, where are you going to build? We'll build on the field. I said, oh, so you're going to double the size of the school, twice as many children, and they're going to have nowhere to play? Well, they can come over here, he said. I said, oh, so they can cross the road. Have you seen what the road's like?
As soon as you get up to the road and see the traffic and people everywhere, it's not the same.
That's the sort of attitude that upsets me. They can do what they like. They can come in and change without actually thinking about the consequences.
And some of the new estates that they build, or the new housing that they build, and they do leave nice green areas, which is vital. It's vital to people's health and well-being.
If you have developments that are too big, they become insular. And I also worry a bit that it's not anybody's fault, but because people come in from outside, they see a village community and it's billed as such. People selling houses love to do that.
It's easy for the builders, let's have a fresh green site. That's easy. That's going to be, we can make this and this amount of money on doing that. Well, if you've got a brownfield site, it's going to be a bit harder, isn't it?
We always say that the other side of the top road, as we call it, you know, is safe from development. So hopefully that will carry on, because there's definitely a different feel when you get the other side of that road or the other side of the ridge. You feel as though you're in a different world sometimes. That is more, you know, as it's always been.
They come and expect from a village community, but they don't necessarily give. And you've got to become involved, because, well, otherwise you're just one on your own, aren't you? You know.
It's very hard. It's a very difficult one. I think we should build houses that are needed, that are definitely needed, and in places where people would like them. But to retain, I'd like to live in the countryside, not everybody likes to, so please don't spoil my spot. I won't spoil yours.
If you were to have a large housing estate or an even larger traveller community, that's going to become insular in itself, and there's going to be trouble. And I just think, well, I think it's a very selfish attitude, but I can see it having a huge detrimental effect on the village. That worries me. That's the big worry. If people want to integrate and give into the village community, great. If you just want to take and have the attitude of, I can do what I like and blow you, that is going to set up not just resentment but trouble, in my view. I remember one instance when I was at school teaching, and the children were coming into assembly. I was taking assembly and the children were coming in, and they were always very good. They knew they had to come in very quietly, and it was a time to come in and be still and be quiet. And we had some traveller children arrive, and this particular child came in. I don't know how I kept a straight face, actually, because he came in and skidded across on his knees. And I didn't have to say a word, because the other children went, "Ah!" And he looked around as if to say, What? And then he thought, nobody else has done this. So he went and sat down like the others did. And that's the thing. If you want to be accepted, and you have to sort of judge what the situation is around you, whether you're 5 or 6 or 56.
I think to build for profit, for greed, the people in power should have the responsibility to, no, this is not what everybody wants. Everybody is entitled to, if they would like one, an outdoor space, even if it's only a courtyard, but somewhere where they could go out, they can get some fresh air.
As soon as you get up to the road and see the traffic and people everywhere, it's, you know, it's not the same.
It was, and I hope it still is, it's a slower pace of life. Not everybody wants to or can keep up with this incessant pace of this, we want this, we need this. Stop. Let's reflect.
It's about joining in, and it's about giving, and then you find it's about supporting each other.
Who can foresee the future? How you wouldn't ever think about the internet and how that's changed things 20 years ago, would you? Really? I don't think even the people who developed it foresaw all the consequences of that. So, and that has a big effect on everybody's life, doesn't it?
If we could just stop and appreciate what's there, I think that's to me, that's the important thing.
It'd be nice if people walked occasionally to their destination. Perhaps we could get people doing that somehow.
It's about getting alongside people and helping them.
Let's look out for each other. Let's appreciate what we've got. Life's too short not to.
You adapt to things, don't you? Things that are new and you don't like. In the end, you get accustomed to them.
Children have a lot more now. They don't have the freedom. They have more possessions. They perhaps go on more holidays if they're able to.
Our son lives here. He lives in the house where I grew up that my dad built. And of course he's got a little one now, which is great. So when you're talking about generations, we were 5, we're now, with Grace, 7. But I think he would say the same as me, perhaps not to the same extent, but because he had his grandparents nearby, because he went to playgroup here and school here, I know he is still very good friends with some of the boys particularly, who he grew up with.
Cars, that detracts a lot from the village. And I hope that people who come to the village will integrate. We have at the moment a lovely village, and let's try and keep it like this. Let's try and keep it. It's somebody I heard say it's getting more urbanised, which it is. We perhaps didn't realise at the time, and you take things for granted, of course you do, especially as a child. But I think to retain it as it is, we've got to have that integration, and people have got to have more respect for each other and for the land and for the whole area. It saddens me when you hear that of the mindless vandalism and just this behaviour, just the behaviour, this total lack of respect. I think we had more respect, probably because you knew everybody. You had more respect. And if somebody told you off, golly, that was really, if it, it meant something. But I think that is sadly lacking, not only in our village, everywhere. So I think that really needs to be addressed. How? I'm not a politician, I don't know, but there's got to be something, because otherwise it's a downward spiral, and it would be such a shame, not only for this village, but for everywhere. Lots and lots of new people have come to the village, and they've improved it, they've added to it, they've continued things, they've started things, all of what we need, what the village needs. But unfortunately too, there are some that, well, even people who've lived here a long time. I remember someone saying, I've lived here 25 years and I don't even know where the quarries are. How sad. I think that's really sad when we've got this beautiful village and miles of beautiful footpaths. Take an interest in it. And I think if you take an interest in your village, you're going to respect it and take responsibility for your actions. But to respect other people too.
My husband has always been a fruit grower. His father had a farm the other side of the main road in Lewes. This farm came on the market, Filmer's, and he'd worked here as an apprentice. That was 1981, I think. He always wanted to grow cherries because that was his favourite crop. Because the standard cherry trees that used to grow all round here, all around this house really, there were lots of standard cherry trees which were 60, 80 feet high. Everybody who used to go cherry picking always tells you about the 60 stave ladders that they had to climb up, and it was really scary. And most people couldn't move the ladders. You had a person in the orchard who was the ladder mover because he had the skill to move these huge ladders from tree to tree. We bought the piece of land up near Cornwallis School. We rented it first and then bought it. And that we called Goodwin's because that used to be part of my grandfather's poultry farm. So I think we've got about 30 acres now, and our daughter is very much involved and will take over when we're no longer around. It's good to have our daughter to continue, again, continuity, and she's much more forward-thinking than we are. So we now have a cherry stall at the gate, which is thriving, and it's advertised on Facebook and Instagram and those, as you do now, which we would never have done.
Lots of cousins, aunts, uncles. It really was. And I remember we lived right opposite my grandparents, and every Saturday we used to go over. We used to take it in turns, rotate, to go over and spend the day with them. And then one would go up to my aunt and uncle further up in the village. And there was still granddad's brothers were still about in the village. He grew up in the village. And his brothers were still here, and they used to come down and see Grandad. He used to cut people's hair as well, so they used to come down and get their hair cut and have a chat. And as I say, if you're out in the village, that's Uncle Tom. He's standing at the gate with the Murray mints. Or we were so close, And my cousins who had moved away to Coxheath, not that far, but used to come a lot. And Mum's family, even though Mum didn't grow up in the village, she came when she was 17 when she met Dad. Lots of the village families are here and have it's their roots. It's their everything. And I think it's really sad that some people don't have that. Luckily, one of our children still lives in the village, and his children go to the village school, and he wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And I think there's a lot of the children who grew up in the village who would love to be here.
Nothing stays the same, and change happens, and you've got to go with it. But I think it has to be managed. You've got to be conscious of other people. And that goes right back to, when I was a child, you were conscious of other people because they all knew you.
I think I'm privileged to live here still, yeah.
As soon as you get on the brow of that hill and look out, you think, the world's all right. That will probably be my favourite place, and the deer park. And my dad, he loved walking as well, and sometimes we'd take a picnic and only go down the hill. He always wanted to live in Boughton Bottom, but my mum wouldn't. She wouldn't contemplate living so far out. We go for a family picnic sometimes and just take a bit of food and sit in a field somewhere, It's still quite rural down there. You could be miles from anywhere. When my brother and I were about 10 and 12, something like that, my dad thought we ought to have the experience of hop picking, because he could see that it wasn't going to be happening much more. So I'm sure we had a week off school. Probably, I'm sure he asked for permission, but we had a week off school to go hand hop picking at Boughton Bottom. And I've got a memory of being on my bike early in the morning, September morning, and flying down Church Hill, in the mist and the sun about to come up, and the smell of hops. Now I just love that smell. It's nearly time for hops now, isn't it? I shall go and get some. We've got some on our hedges, and rub them between my fingers, and the smell is lovely. Where we went is the farm that my grandmother where she was born and grew up. And again, I think that was called Eel House, but I think they've changed the name. She was born on a farm, a sort of mixed farm, I think, as they were then. And she went to Boughton School in a pony and trap because it was too far to walk.